Hey everyone, it's Maura Allard of Wind, Water, and Wisdom back for a Maura Musing. And last week I talked about how I was in Las Vegas for a conference. I was actually accompanying a friend who was speaking at that conference who had never been to Vegas and wanted my assistance in navigating all that Las Vegas is. But being part of that, I was actually attended this cognitive life path programming conference, and I actually wound up being certified in it after the 3 days. So basically, what it is, and it's not really new material to me. I've actually worked with this years ago, but it was a different way of doing it. So, in brief oversight, it's actually balancing your brain because we have a right and a left side of our brain. One being our very logical brain, where we spend a lot of time, our left side of our brain, and our right brain, which is more of our receptive brain, our intuitive brain, our creative brain, that side of our brain, which we don't spend as much time in. So basically, it's balancing the brain, then picking an area of your life that bothers you, something that you might be a negative thing that you keep saying to yourself, or an event that took place in your life that keeps resurfacing that you want to change. You then actually acknowledge that, then you actually rewrite that almost in a photo snap. And then there's a way that you can switch that new image actually overwrites the old image or the old saying that you're saying. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. I'm happy to talk more about it. It's a little much more in detail than I can do in a video. But what I wanted to talk about was what happens, and this was even more profound than what I took place that weekend. One evening when I was with the person I was traveling with, we were going to go to dinner, and a woman from the workshop asked if she could attend dinner with us. And we said, sure, come on. So we sat, and we all had dinner, and we were talking, and she asked if she could share something with us, that she didn't have anyone back home that she felt comfortable sharing this information with. Long story short, her husband, who was a CEO who had recently retired, was not supportive of her spirituality, of her going to this conference, of her wanting to practice Reiki, anything like that. So she was feeling really down, and but she was keeping it all bottled in. She had no one to talk about how she felt about this. It was a very long-term marriage. She was very happily married. She loved her husband. This wasn't about anything like that. This was just about him not, or her not, feeling supported by him. So we obviously listened to her, and then we actually talked a little bit about perhaps, he had just walked away from this big role, feeling so important, and maybe he was a little lost right now. And she was like, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And we talked about maybe having a conversation with him about how he was feeling, and then maybe that would open up an opportunity to say how she was feeling, that she wanted to feel more support. Well, just talking about that, just moving that energy that was all stuck inside of her, that feeling of like, I want to be supported. He doesn't have my back on this issue, or I need help from him, or love or support in this area. Her moving that energy by sharing that at that table. The next morning, she comes down to breakfast, and she comes over to our table and says, you'll never believe this, but I was talking to my husband this morning, and last night he went to a neighborhood cookout. They lived in this neighborhood a really long time, and she said, obviously, the neighbors asked where she was, and he said, she's in Vegas, and she's at this conference that is going to be doing something with spirituality. He didn't know what it was about, but that's what he said. And one of the neighbors said, oh my God, that's great. I'd love to speak to her when she gets back. That shift, she couldn't even believe he mentioned where she was, what she was doing in the field that he had not been supportive of, and that he shared that, and that him sharing that then triggered somebody else to have a positive response. And she was just overjoyed. And I go back to, she was keeping that inside of her. She found some people that she trusted. She shared her thoughts. Energy started to move. Her husband, unbeknownst to what was happening in Vegas, is at a cookout. He started to feel comfortable and confident sharing something that he was clearly uneasy with. And then the universe again clicked in and found a neighbor that gave positive feedback to her husband about what his wife was doing. Hello! I love that. I love when those synchronicities happen. I love when we share and we move our energy, and that our energy has a chain reaction. This really happens when we really take the time to not always be in here and we actually help each other and share our thoughts. We didn't do anything that evening, my friend and I, except hold space for her, listen to her, support her. We gave her some insight about maybe what her husband was going through, but we didn't tell her how to fix anything. We just held space for her. So I encourage you to find a friend or a family member or somebody that you trust, that you can share something that you're stuck with, and see if you can move that energy. Obviously, she even asked before she sat down or before she shared, could she trust us? Yes, we would hold that space for her. Obviously, you don't want to trust somebody with personal information you don't feel confident, but a good friend, open up your heart. Trust that someone will keep your secret. Trust that someone will hold that space and hear you. And then see if the energy around you starts to move once you open up and keep that stuck feeling out and get that out into energy and get it moving. I hope that helps. Have a great day.